Shut up, fool! Yeah, it's late. It's late for most people. It's not late for people in the... Oh, I'm hot. Well, yeah, and I'm loud. It's not late for California types. Jared McIntyre? Well done. 1,000 Pine points for you. People think that this is just a joke. But no. You're 999,000 Pine points away from an all-expense-paid trip to the luxurious Circus in Las Vegas, Nevada. And the bed bugs come free. Okay, I thought I would review this. Some people wanted me to review this. I remember Wise Disciple when he first started his YouTube channel. I got recommended, and I offered to connect with him, I think. Yeah, I'm quite sure. I either commented on one of his videos and said, hey, we should talk or something, if memory serves correct. And yeah, I think it's best if Christians stay away from me. I think that's probably the best thing to do. If you're a Christian, you're not quite sure how to handle a guy like me, just stay away. So let's take a listen. Oh, let's see here. Shocking debate. Atheist presupper destroys himself. Some of the comments in here are just amazing. One guy lied about me here. Ugh.
Asked my friend Eli Ayala of Revealed Apologetics to join me in breaking down and analyzing this intense exchange. So let's get right into it.
See, Wise Disciple is very good with the clickbaiting. Destroys himself? Question mark. That's a great way to put it, because he's not saying I destroyed myself. He's asking, did Doug destroy himself? Very clever, very wise of this disciple. Oh, by the way, this is a talk between me and the Think Institute. Oh, what's his first name? I forget. And I went on his program. I don't know, was it a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and I made clips, 2 clips of it. Just the clips where I was on, of course. And then he contacted me and said, take him down or I will tattletale to YouTube. Okay, I know Think Institute, if you're listening, you might actually, a good chance you'll see this on the replay. There's kind of an unspoken rule amongst YouTube creators, especially in this space, that if someone helps you create content, like me being a guest coming on your show, then the unspoken rule is that you give the host a couple of days to get the views that they want, and usually after 2 days the views just plummet anyhow. And then you allow the person, the guest, to if they want to create content from it, you allow them to do that. You didn't do that with me. Now, you're a new YouTube channel, and maybe you're not aware of these unspoken rules, and maybe you don't care. But most YouTube creators are, hey, look, if you come on my show, yeah, you can use this. Just give me a couple days or a week or whatever to get my views, and then you can do whatever you want with what you did to help me create this content.
Guys, disciple, my name is Nate, and I'm helping you become the effective...
Go to bed, Reed. This is about precept stuff. It'll be boring anyhow. I actually have not watched this yet, so it'll be interesting to see how I destroyed myself.
Christian that you are meant to be, which entails understanding atheist challenges to the faith. And this one, Eli, this one's a doozy. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
So we're going to get into it. But first, make sure to like, sub, and share this one around, but only if it blesses you. All right. Welcome back to the show, Eli.
Blesses you.
Good to see you, man.
Thank you so much. Yeah, same here. Thank you
I've
so
talked
much
to this-
for having me.
So we're going to get into more
I've talked to Eli a couple times, several times.
with Apologia Studios. But actually what happened was, I think it was a couple days ago, I saw you break down this debate on your channel, and I was like, oh man, I got to talk to Eli. We got to sit together. We got to wrestle with this one. So let's get right into it.
You notice, I think he does a lot of debate reviews, this guy named Wise Disciple. But with me, he needed help. He brought in Eli.
So let's talk about truth for a second. I'm holding a pen here, and assuming I'm not doing any tricks, I'm not upside down or anything.
Okay, wait. So I've skipped ahead. So for those that are wondering, this is not the beginning of the exchange, because the beginning of the exchange where Doug sort of gives his initial salvo was a hot mess. All right. So Eli.
Well, just take his word for it, I guess. The very beginning exchange was about God not being a trinity, but a quaternary. And I never published that part. I think it's still up. But it's very interesting.
Doug tried to introduce some kind of thought experiment, and it just wasn't working. You know, it just,
What was it?
I don't even know what the reason was here, but Joel just like shut him down completely. And I thought Joel did a great job.
Now, is that a fact or an opinion? See, I treat politics the same way as Christianity.
So we're going to actually pick it up right here. Take a look.
If I drop this pen, do you think it's true that it will fall to the ground?
Yes.
And you believe that because of the uniformity of nature?
Well, I don't know. Is this a trick like it's going to land on your foot or it's going to land on the desk? or something? Like,
no.
I didn't know that there was a desk underneath you.
Because under your worldview, I could let go of this pen and it could go up.
Oh, interesting. Like God could intervene?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. God is free to do that. Absolutely.
So where's your uniformity of nature?
Uniformity of nature comes from the fact that that God acts consistently, and that when
God acts consistently, meaning he consistently doesn't have the pen go up.
God breaks the laws of logic, the laws of nature, which he doesn't break the laws of logic, but when he does so for a particular purpose. It's supposed to be weird. Miracles are weird in our worldview.
But would
they're
you
designed,
say,
they're designed
would you
to
say
get
when
your
God
attention to prove a
intervenes,
point.
would you say if God intervenes and I let go of this pen and it goes up for morally sufficient reasons, do you think there's uniformity in nature in that instance?
So what Doug is doing right here, and help me to articulate this,
Yeah, tell me what I'm doing.
He's trying to find some kind of violation or conflict between two things. The concept of the uniformity of
Wise disciple, let's just cut to the chase. What Doug's trying to do here is send millions and millions of young Christians to hell. That's what he's really thinking.
nature, which is what Christians point to, you know, in conversations like this. But actually, not just Christians, atheists do this, right? But Doug is trying to show that the uniformity of nature does not jibe with the Christian view of miracles. Is that right?
Yeah. So when a presuppositionalist is typically interacting with an atheist, we will say things like, only within the Christian worldview can you account for uniformity. And this relates to kind of the principle of induction and the philosophical problem of induction. And so we'll say that the atheist can't even account for the expectation that the future will be like the past. And so I think what Doug is trying to do, and I think the heart behind what he's doing is accurate. He's trying to actually provide what we call an internal critique of the Christian worldview, to show that on its own basis, it's problematic, and the worldview itself cannot account for uniformity. He's saying, hey, look.
Okay, we're almost through 10% of this video. And Eli says what Doug's doing is accurate. Was that what he said? Or good, some good thing, good word. And so 10% of the way through. So far, it doesn't sound like I've destroyed myself.
You know, God can perform miracles. And so, yeah, you can't expect the future to be like the past, because for all you know, God could change things. And so you have the same problem that I have. That's kind of the route that I think.
Actually, I would say you have a worse problem than I have. Because under my worldview, I'm not expecting a miracle. Not to say I'm against it or that's impossible, but uniformity of nature is more uniform in my worldview than yours. And yours, sometimes the pen can go up.
Taking. The problem is,
see.
I don't think I think Joel gives a great response, and I don't think that he, the atheist lands the punch, so to speak.
Ken Hilker says, Doug, you're going to get bored fast. They complain you don't know enough philosophy and keep bringing up straw man atheists. Yeah, when you don't know what to say, whether it's in politics or religion, you just say straw man. I get that a lot, especially because I'm a top-down type of person, and I'll keep things short, sweet, to the point. And so it's always viewed as a straw man unless you speak in a William Lane Craig voice and say, I've read this book and I've read that book, and I'm philosophically educated in the coterie of ideas.
Well, let's see what Joel does.
Yeah, uniformity in nature in the Christian worldview is the faithfulness of God expressed in the continuation of the laws of nature, which God could have created otherwise, but he does so. He intervenes in order to establish a point and or to authenticate a claim. Your issue as an atheist, Doug, real quick, your issue as an atheist is 1,000 times worse. It's actually infinitely worse because given
Okay, it's 1,000 times worse. Oh no, let's scratch that. An infinite amount times worse.
Atheism, there is it's not just, hey, the laws of nature might at some point decide to change. There's literally no basis whatsoever for assuming that
If you can stop
nature,
right there,
physics.
real quick.
Yeah.
And the idea that Joel is suggesting that it is 1,000 times worse for the atheist is not even a Christian criticism in its originality. I mean, this is an issue that is brought up by the great Scottish skeptic David Hume, right? What is the basis upon which we expect the future to be like the past? If you were to say, for example, and this is the problem of
The past, that's the basis.
induction, right? If you're to say that the future is going to be like the past, because it's always been that way in the past, that doesn't answer the question. The question is, how do you know that the future will be like the past?
Well, it depends how you define knowledge. But if you say infallible knowledge, then you don't know. But if you say, 99% sure that when I take a pen and drop it, it's going to fall towards the ground.
And the only way
I'm just a farm boy from Manitoba, Canada, and all this is actually pretty simple.
you have a basis for knowing that the future will very likely be like the past, you can't have a basis simply by appealing to the past.
Why
You're
not?
slipping in a presupposition, which interestingly
Yeah, I got presuppositions.
enough is not known if it is known at all. It is not known through observation. So, if you're an empiricist and you say that knowledge comes through observation, the assumption that nature is uniform is a non-empirical assumption that is slipped into, a person's philosophical.
Yeah, it's just an assertion, right? Just an assertion. I assume that when I drop a pen 1,000 times, that the 1,001 time, it's also going to behave the same way. But I could be wrong.
Outlook, and it's right there. It's precisely at that
But it's
moment.
more likely you're going to be wrong because in your worldview, you have a God that can make it float up onto the roof.
Where a presuppositionalist like myself is going to leap in and say, why should we grant you that assumption? If knowledge
Why should I grant you your assumption?
comes through observation, what observation did you make to assume or conclude that nature must act in a uniform way? And this is a
1,000 times dropping the pen. That's how, Eli.
problem that was brought up by David Hume, and it is not a problem for the Christian. The Christian has a justification for why we would expect the future to be generally predictable.
Unless generally predictable. Why can't I be generally predictable? I mean, make predictions generally. If you can do it, I can do it, right? Half my brain tied behind my back to make it fair. Wise disciple.
Because the uniformity of nature is a presupposition of the Christian worldview. God, through his providence and the governing of the world in an orderly way, God imposes his own consistency in the
The cosmos has its own consistency. It is what it is. It is a necessary thing of existence. Our universe has its laws. Why? You don't ask why. You just say, it is.
such that it makes perfect sense for the
Just like you don't ask, why does God exist? He just does.
Christian to expect that the future will very likely be like the past. And so I think Joel gives a beautiful answer here, and he's correct. It's 100 times worse for the atheist.
Yay, Team Christian.
Because they don't have a justification for that key assumption.
You know, I do not find it at all a coincidence for people who reject God to simply say, oh, well, that basis, that's a brute fact.
Well,
I'll just start right here.
It's no surprise to me that Christians say God's nature is just a brute fact. It is what it is. Not surprising. These guys don't think how every word they say can be just flipped right back on them.
Right.
And this is how atheists are revealed to be presuppers of a certain kind, right? They argue for the uniformity of nature by pointing to the uniformity of nature, which is circular reasoning, is it not?
It's virtuously circular, not viciously. See, I know that language too.
Yes, and it's a vicious circularity. It does not actually answer anything. When you assert something as a brute fact too, Nick.
You know why Eli said vicious? Because he knows that they have circularity as well, but they call it virtuous. See, my worldview is virtuous. Your worldview is vicious when it comes to circularity.
A lot of people don't realize this. Brute facts are contingent facts, and they are facts that do not have an internal or external explanation for why the fact is what it is. And so, for example, if you assert something as just a brute given, then by definition, it's arbitrary because there's no explanation as to why.
It's arbitrary. There's no explanation. If there's no explanation, it's arbitrary. Why does God have the nature he has? Why, Eli? Is there an explanation? Why is God? Why? Why does God exist? Is there an explanation? Or is it arbitrary? Well, God exists because he's a necessary being. Well, the cosmos exists because it's necessary. Done. Just a foreign boy from Manitoba.
Fact is the way that it is. So you either are stuck in arbitrariness by assuming that it's a brute fact, or you have to give some kind of explanation or justification as to why that fact is the way you say it is. Now, the atheist will tend to turn that around on the Christian. They'll say, well, the Christian has the same problem because you guys believe that God always existed, and so God is a brute fact. And of course, that's actually false in the Christian perspective. God is not a brute fact. Remember, a brute fact is a fact that has neither an external explanation for its existence or an internal explanation for its existence. Now, it's true.
Okay, what's the internal or external explanation for God's existence? He's going to say necessity. I haven't watched this, but we'll see.
That the Christian God doesn't have an external explanation for his existence, right? Given the doctrine of divine aseity, this idea that God exists in such a way that he does not depend on anything external to himself. It's true, God doesn't have an external explanation, but God does have an internal explanation for his existence, and that internal explanation is that God exists out of a necessity of his nature.
And I can say that the universe exists and has the properties it has by necessity.
Sure. It's part of who he is. And that
might be too sarcastic.
Is not open to the atheist, because if he says, well, maybe the universe exists out of the necessity of its own nature. Well, then it's not a brute fact now. You're giving an explanation as to why the way in which you think the universe exists, to which I'm then going to pivot. How do you know, right?
How do I know what? That the universe exists?
Claiming a metaphysical principle. The universe exists out of a necessity of its own nature. I'm going to ask you, how do you know that metaphysical principle? What epistemology do you have in place to put you in a position to know?
My properly basic experience and beliefs. Some atheists say their starting point is, I think, therefore I am. Like T-Jump, I think, says that. Mine is that the cosmos exists, eternal past. Why can't I just say that? And what's the explanation for this brute fact? Necessity. Why does God exist? Necessity.
Know that. And then you're right back into the problem of skepticism.
We should jump back in, but
and how do you know God exists? I think we both share the same properly basic belief that the universe exists. We both experience it, yes? Do we both experience God? Now, Christians are going to say, yeah, you do. Well, it seems like the people that do experience God have different views of what this God's like. And then there's a lot of atheists in this planet, on this world.
But so I want to put this out there, and then maybe we can circle back around to this later in the video. But it's amazing to me how much of this comes down to a confusion between those two categories, what you just identified between necessity and contingency. Just my observation. But let's jump back in. Let's see what happens.
Chemistry, physical reality, in any way, shape, or form is going to be the same from one moment to the next, or that our perception has any bearing in what's actually going on.
But notice you didn't answer my question.
What was your? Yeah, I think I did. Tell me how I did.
If I drop this pen and it goes up,
Yeah.
has the uniformity of nature been broken?
As a general principle, no.
In this case, has it been broken?
In that case, if God directly intervenes, then the law, the principle of uniformity in nature
you can do it.
has not been broken. God has
I'm not talking about the principle. I'm talking about in this case.
intervened in
this instance, has it been broken if it goes up instead of down?
define the law of uniformity in nature from a Christian.
This is okay, Christians. If you want to witness, if you want to be a good evangelical, don't do what this guy's doing here.
Perspective.
If you stop right there, now Doug's going to say, well, that's what I'm trying to get from you. When in fact, I think Joel is correct in asking Doug for his understanding of the Christian conception of the uniformity of nature, because it looks like he's not understanding what Joel is saying, right?
Yeah, please understand me. Well, just answer my question. I don't have to understand you at this point. I can just ask you a question and you can answer it.
General principle, no, the uniformity of nature is not broken,
But
and the general principle of uniformity provides the metric upon which we can recognize something as abnormal, like a pen floating to the ceiling or
Right.
something like that. So it's not a principle of either it's broken or it's not broken, right? It's not like these laws are kind of these things where God kind of enters in and tinkers with the laws or anything like that.
my question is, has the pen, if I let go and it goes up, and I'm on planet Earth and gravity's pulling things down towards the ground, if I let go and it goes up, in that instance, has the pen behaved in a way that is different than what we believe is the uniformity of nature? Answer, of course, is yes. It's a rhetorical question. And these Christians are fighting tooth and nail to just say, no, it's not performing like the uniformity of nature should perform. It's doing something different.
Clarity that God imposes upon creation that provides the context for a meaningful identification of a particular instance of miracle. And so I think he's coming at it from completely, he's coming at it from a misunderstanding, I think.
Misunderstanding.
As the conversation.
Eli, I know. Like, there's a God. I know you'll be watching this later. And you really think I don't understand Christianity? Eli, come on. Put your hand on the Bible and say out loud, with God watching, Doug doesn't understand your position or Thinking Institute's position or Wise Disciples' position. I've heard you guys. I've talked to you guys. I know your position. I understand exactly what you guys are saying. And I'm getting you to admit that when in the case of miracles, the uniformity of nature has gone kaput. That in that instance, it's gone kaput. It's not behaving like the uniformity of nature says it should behave. And I think eventually he admits this, but I got to pull it out of you guys.
He's coming at it from a misunderstanding, I think.
As the conversation unfolds, I think this misunderstanding becomes more obvious.
Well, that's what I'm asking. I don't know your perspective. That's why I'm asking it.
Okay.
If the uniformity of nature, from my understanding, is that if I let go and it falls, I'm assuming that the next time I let go, it's going to fall.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's why are you assuming? What is the basis for that assumption? I mean,
What a stupid question. Why are you assuming it's going to fall? because when I drop it 1,000 times, it falls. You see 1,000 white ducks come around the bush, and someone asks me, what color's the next duck? I'm going to assume a white one. Could I be wrong? Yes. That's a great assumption.
The next question, right?
And his answer is going to be, well, because every time I've dropped it in the past, it's always fallen.
Thank you, Eli.
But that's not a basis to expect it will drop in the future unless you sneak in.
Sure it is. Sure it is. I have pooped every day of my life, almost. We'll say every week. Every week of my life, I have pooped. Is it reasonable for me to say that I'm going to poop next week? Is that reasonable, Eli? Are you going to take a poop next week? Do you know you're going to take a poop next week if you're alive? No, you don't know, do you? Yeah, of course you know. Come on, guys. Yeah, Aragorn in the live stream chat is saying you're arguing against reality. That's what these guys are doing.
A non-observable presupposition, namely the presupposition that nature is uniform. And the question is, how do you know nature is uniform? How do you make sense out of uniformity within a
We presuppose it as a part of the nature of the universe. Just like you guys presuppose things.
God perspective? And I would say that they can't. And every time I hear people, or I read people in the comment section, they're like, but it's always functioned this way. I just point them to David Hume. David Hume points out that that's a bad answer. It's not me, right?
Right.
So I think it's important.
There's no problem of induction. You can even get rid of the word. You can just say, you just view it as guesses. I'm going to guess that I'm going to poop next week. Oh, my guess turned out right. When next week rolls around and I take a poop. Who cares about Hume? Who cares about the word induction? Just say, oh, we're making predictions, and then we can test it, see if the prediction comes true. Done. And then there's reasonable predictions. If we say, 99.9999% of the time our prediction comes true, ooh, yeah, man, you're a good predictor. You're basing it on something that's true. Thanks for the donation, Mason Dry. Will you impersonate a Christian philosopher who is making up a term on the spot and defining the term as a solution to the contradiction within God's properties? Oh, come on. I know you gave me a lot of money here, $10. I mean, I can buy, what can I buy for $10? I can probably buy nothing for $10 at Outback Steakhouse. No, I can buy a Diet Coke. But I can do my William Lane Craig voice. All you have to do is just barely open up your mouth. And just do some groaning. And Christianity has an intellectual basis. We don't have to live on blind faith.
People know a little bit about the history of philosophy before they kind of just make these blanket statements.
Uniformity of nature.
Yes.
Now, if I let go,
You got to know a little bit about the philosophy. I mean, come on, Eli. Philosophy is what screwed you up.
and it goes up because God made it go up.
Yes.
In this instance, has the uniformity of nature been broken?
So God transcends nature. So the general principle
Yes.
of uniformity of
Just say
nature
yes.
is
It's a yes or no
unbroken.
question.
Well, let's define uniformity of nature from a Christian perspective.
Wise disciple didn't
Nature
like that.
in general behaves uniformly
having
unless
fun.
God intervenes,
I
and
thought this would be boring. This is actually fun.
he is free to do so. So
There. So the answer is no. It's not uniform.
nature is uniform because God keeps it uniform unless God intervenes in such a way as to.
Right. Unless God intervenes.
Yes,
So
yes.
you have the
but that's
uniformity of
baked
nature
into-
until God intervenes.
So what you've discovered is the principle that the Christian worldview allows for miracles. And so if God performs a miracle, the uniformity of nature is not
So who's getting destroyed here?
absolute such that it limits God from interfering in nature.
So it's
The
not
reason why-
uniform.
Nature is uniform unless God performs a miracle.
So it's sometimes mostly uniform, but sometimes not.
Mostly uniform, but sometimes not. If
Boom! Boom chakalaga laga. I must admit, when this is bringing back memories when I was there, and I went boom in my head. It's like the Princess Bride movie. We got a dead guy here. He's not dead. He's mostly dead. Nature isn't uniform, it's mostly uniform.
If God intervenes, if God intervenes, yes, that's correct.
And
yes.
my question, Nate, is what is he trying to demonstrate then? I mean, I think Joel is correct. You've discovered, you've uncovered the idea that within the Christian worldview, God can do miracles. Yes.
Yeah, we've discovered in your worldview God can do miracles. So when you're doing your physics equation, you know, you got a projectile going up into the sky and then falling down. You got to put another variable in that equation if you want to calculate where it's going to land. And I would suggest you use the letter G, capital G. And, you know, you got the half mv squared, blah, 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 velocity, all that sort of thing. And then at the end, put plus G. Because that G could be anything. Could be the projectile could just keep on going into space if God wants it to. It could fall down if God wants it to. It can hover and not move if God wants it to. I mean, some uniformity of nature, that is.
Surprise, right? This isn't a surprise. I don't see what the point of the line of questioning was.
Let me run this by you and see what you think. There's another assumption underlying this conversation that I think should be identified at some point in the discussion. And it's probably something like Doug looks at nature and sees laws, which, I mean, that is actually how we tend to speak about.
Yeah, this is not too long. Maybe I'll speed it up just a scotch, 20%. And then we can let callers call in later. But so far, this is fun. Maybe it'll get boring.
Nature, right? The laws of nature, the laws of physics. But the mistake I think Doug is making is in thinking that what we are observing with our eyes is some kind of inviolable law. And it's not. And see, that's the thing that probably could be highlighted in a conversation like this. The reason Doug...
He just admitted he has in his mind that these are unviolable laws, but it's not. So, okay, what's the uniform part then? If it can be changed willy-nilly? Not willy-nilly, sorry, that's rude. If it can be changed based on the morally sufficient reasons that God has?
Doug sees some kind of tension or contradiction is because he sets up his premise already assuming that there is no God behind nature. Because if there was no God behind nature...
Eli just told you, wise disciple, that I'm using internal critique. I'm accepting that worldview.
And the laws of nature are somehow deterministic because of event causation. You know, there's no agency, there's no intentionality in event causation. It's just previous things that happen that cause the next thing to happen, right? Yep. And that's the issue. If the laws of nature derive from agent causation, you know, that is, God not only created the world, but also sustains the world. I mean, there's all kind of scripture for this, right, Eli?
Scripture.
Well, then the regularity we see in nature is all due to agent causation. And guess what? That also explains miracles, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure if he would say that the laws of nature are immutable. Although people have assumed that. I mean, you have someone like Baruch Spinoza believe that the laws of nature were immutable, and so a miracle would be kind of a contradiction. I want to take a guess. I think he would say that it's possible that they can be broken, but due to our the observation.
No, yeah, Eli's right. It's possible that the laws of nature could be broken if your God exists and has the power to break them. But right now, my belief is the laws of nature can't be broken in our universe. That's another thing a lot of Christians don't get. They think our universe, popped out of nothing. Most atheists don't believe that. Even Lawrence Krauss doesn't believe that he defines nothing as something still. So most naturalists, I should say, not atheists, naturalists believe that the cosmos, which is the entirety of everything, even the stuff before the Big Bang. Oh, Doug, you can't use the word before the Big Bang. Yes, I can. I just did. That whether there's quantum energy fluctuations or whatever that caused our Big Bang, we don't know. But it's more reasonable. Now, this is the crux of the whole matter. To me, call me crazy, which a lot of Christians do. To me, it's more reasonable to believe that a category of existence called the material has always existed eternal past, then compared to a category of existence called God, called supernatural, called bodiless mind, called spiritual. I mean, try to define those terms without saying what it's not. It's very, very difficult. Try it, Christians. Try to define supernatural without using the word natural. It's immaterial, Doug. Oh, you just used the word material. Try defining it without using the word material. It's fuzzy stuff, Doug. Okay.
Regularity in the past, there's no reason to expect it to change in the future. But again, that already has a bunch of presuppositions that we're going to want to challenge baked into that whole thing too. So I'm not sure exactly if he would say that they are immutable. But those are just my thoughts there.
Maybe he'll say. Let's find out.
Do you believe in uniformity in nature?
Yeah, I presuppose it.
Okay. On what basis?
I presuppose it. Presuppositions don't need a basis.
So on what basis?
Did you hear that?
Yes.
Presuppositions don't need a basis.
Yeah, so this is now getting into terminology. There's the word basis, there's the word justification, there's the word grounding. When I say it doesn't need basis, I mean justification there. But why do those presuppositions exist in the first place? I do think I can use the word grounding because it's grounded in my properly basic beliefs. So here's the analogy. Christians say that they presuppose that God is the author of creation, that God exists, of course. And what's their grounding? Some Christians ground it differently. Some Christians say they ground it, the precepts say they ground it based on the impossibility of the contrary. It just has to be true. That's their grounding. So they don't justify it, they ground it. And so I ground my presuppositions in my properly basic beliefs, my experience of the world around me. Sort of like what T-Jump says, I think, therefore I am. The starting point. And a lot of people think, well, what does all this matter? I'm not just, my rhetoric here can be viewed as trolling a little bit them, but I do believe what I'm saying here. I do believe it. I view myself as a foundationalist, that there has to be a starting point in terms of when you ask a question, you say, why? Why X? Well, because of Z. Why Z? Well, because of A. But why A? Because of B. At some point, you got to stop. And what's that stopping point? Your core presuppositions. And for the Christian, these Christians, their stopping point is God. For me and a lot of naturalists, their stopping point is the cosmos.
Basis.
No, if you know what a presupposition is without a basis, you know what that's called, Nate?
What is that?
That's called arbitrariness, right? Which is actually one of the two intellectual sins that a person can commit when reasoning. The other one is inconsistency. So if those who watch this channel are interested in apologetics and things like this, you want to look for two things, inconsistency and arbitrariness, right? We don't allow inconsistencies, right? You can't let people argue and go around contradicting themselves. And you don't let people get away with just making unsubstantiated, foundationless assertions, right?
Preach.
Which is precisely what they, the skeptic often says what we're doing, right? But they want to sneak in their brute facts or their presuppositions. I just presuppose it. Yeah, cool. Do you have a basis for that? Well, I don't need a basis. All right, cool. God exists. I don't need a basis, and I'm just as rationally justified as you. You see?
Yeah. And so the thing is, when he says basis, he's thinking of justification, and I'm thinking grounding.
Now you undercut the very possibility of logical demonstration of any fact. Because if I can start from a foundation that has no justification, I can just assert it, then we can just be arbitrary. And that undercuts one's ability to draw logical conclusions and actually have a foundation for knowledge.
Yeah. Well, and I like what you're doing right there, because that is a debate tactic. I mean, you are essentially highlighting the strategy. You're highlighting the tactic that they're performing right now for everybody else who's witnessing over the shoulder of this conversation. And that's what needs to happen, because a lot of this happens at like top speed, so to speak, and it just goes right past people. He's just made a claim.
Well, that's true. It just goes past people. Most Christians don't care about anything that's being said here. They just want to see the atheists go down. But I would say the vast, vast majority of Christians and atheists, just people, don't care about this topic at all.
But if that's the
In fact, most presuppers, if you talk to them, they were not presuppers when they gave their life to the Lord. My guess is this wise disciple guy. In fact, I think I remember hearing his testimony once years ago. He's not a Christian because of grounding in these foundational type presuppositions. He's a Christian because he felt something through some experience or saw something that he attributes to God and he can't explain it any other way. I bet you money on it. Wise disciple, are you listening? Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
Case, we can claim whatever we want to and just call it what we call properly basic. I mean, that's what he's reaching for anyway.
Do you assume uniformity in nature?
I presuppose it. A properly basic belief. As Greg Bonson said. You know
What is
Greg
that?
Bonson.
Yes. What is the metaphysical principle that explains
he's laughing.
why your presupposition in that case is valid?
It's a properly basic belief, but you don't justify presuppositions.
Can you?
He didn't answer the question. He just repeated the claim.
Yes.
And he needs some
It's a malformed question. I've been told that there's such thing as malformed questions.
kind of explanation as to why he wants to start with the uniformity of nature as properly basic. You can't just say that.
Why not?
You know?
Now, if
Why the heck not? God, as part of his nature, has omnipotence. Just can't say that. Well, justify it. Well, he's God. Yeah, but justify that God's nature is omnipotence. He's just... That's what God means. That's part of God, that he's omnipotent. No, but justify it. It just is. Right? Right.
I need to presuppose it because it would be irrational not to. So he would say that he could say that the uniformity of nature is true by the impossibility of the contrary. It's a fundamental assumption. But then if he argues by the
Actually,
impossibility of the contrary, he's giving what we call a transcendental argument. That's a transcendental
right.
argument.
That's
in which
right.
case,
That's actually good advice, Eli, but I don't really believe that because I'm not aware of all the other possibilities.
he's offering a justification, which is the very thing he said he couldn't do about presuppositions. Right?
Yeah.
So he either is arbitrary, in which we're going to fault him for that, or he gives a justification and he undercuts his own assertion that presuppositions have no
Why can't I give a grounding like you guys do?
justification. So he's got a problem both ways there.
Can you
Man.
answer the question?
I did.
What is the metaphysical principle that gives rise
I don't
to...
believe metaphysical exists.
You don't believe in anything metaphysical?
Right.
Okay. So what is your access to
See,
the...
this guy's going crazy. He goes, what's this language this naturalist is speaking?
future upon which you believe that you have some knowledge about it?
My Blue Heaven in the live stream chat says, Doug, next time you need to say your belief is based on a book. Yeah. Uniformity is a property of nature. How do you know that? How do you justify that? I read it in a book. But it was a really good book. Some people say it was divine.
Inference. I infer it.
From what?
Uniformity of nature, which I presuppose as a property of the nature.
You just said
Stop
you...
there real quick.
Yeah.
So he says, I don't believe in metaphysics. So let's kind of outline this for your audience here.
Oh, this
So
will
when
be
we talk
good.
about worldviews, when we talk about philosophical perspectives or paradigms, every worldview is composed of at least three foundational categories. The first category would be metaphysics. So to really simplify, metaphysics is the study of reality. It asks the question fundamentally, what is real? And of course, people are going to answer that question in a wide variety of ways, right? If you are a Mormon, your metaphysic is going to be very different than, say, if you were a Muslim or a Christian, right? So everyone has a theory of reality. Everyone has an epistemology, a theory of knowledge, how we know what we know. And there are different kinds of epistemologies, Nate, right? There's empiricism. Knowledge comes through sensation
I'm getting bored.
or observation and experience. That's the look and see theory of knowledge. You have rationalism, which is the stop and think type of epistemology, in which you start from basic principles and deduce the rest of your worldview. You have mysticism. People think that knowledge comes through mystical experience. And then you have Christian theism, which asserts that knowledge comes via revelation, right? So everyone has a theory of knowledge. And then there's the third category in ethic, which asks the question, how should we live our lives? Every single person has though at least those three categories in a worldview.
Okay,
Now,
I pinned the link
what Doug has done here is that
if somebody wants to call in.
he says, I don't believe in metaphysics, okay, which would help clarify what he thinks about the nature of reality, right? But he's not giving that to us. He's like, metaphysics is bunk. But then he goes and he talks
it's
about
wrong link. You're right.
epistemology, how we know what we know.
Yeah.
But how on earth do you talk about the nature of knowledge without presupposing categories of reality first? or
Yeah.
simultaneously, right? So metaphysics and epistemology have to be working simultaneously. You don't get to talk about epistemology while holding metaphysics in your back pocket, pretending it doesn't exist. So I think he's got a very disjointed worldview at this point.
It's hokey pokey.
Like things like concepts and thought and sort of thing, I would say are verbs or what the brain does.
Philosophy. Half in, half out.
Yes, it's what Van Til said this. Cornelius Van Til, who's considered the father of
Okay, the right link
presuppositionalism. He
should be in
says,
there.
you don't get to choose epistemologies like you choose hats. Right.
Yeah.
You don't, like, oh, what hat am I going to wear today? Right. It's like, well, I'm going to wear this one. Maybe today I'll be a rationalist. Maybe today I'll be an empiricist. And you don't get to choose your metaphysic as though it has no bearing on your theory of knowledge. They go hand in hand. And this is the disjointed nature of unbelieving thought.
Yeah.
You infer it from what?
From my presupposition.
Actually, I want to comment on that long speech that Eli just gave. He just said something about this is the problem with unbelieving thought. But then he also said that the Mormons have a different principles of worldview, the Muslims, the Hindus. In the presupper's mind, the Mormons are just as bad as the atheists. Let me be very specific. In Eli's mind, and probably in Wise Disciples' mind, because their grounding, their basis, their foundation is not the real God. It's a false God. Same with the Muslims. Same with even Unitarians. So they are against all other worldviews. Okay, we got a caller. P-Mars. Let's see if we can hear you.
Hello.
Hi there. You sound tired.
No, this is how I am.
Oh, you're just really chill and laid back.
Just totally chill.
Have you been drinking tonight?
No.
Okay, good. That means there's a chance you're a real Christian.
I'm the Presup King.
Okay. Where are you calling from?
I'm in North Dakota.
Really? I like you now. You know why?
Why?
Because I'm from Manitoba.
Okay. No, that's soon to be the 51st state of America.
Yes, exactly. I can hardly wait for Trump to take over
it's gonna be
Canada.
great.
Yeah. Did you watch the hockey game?
No, I did not. I saw some clip of it though. That's funny.
For those of you at home, this is called rapport building. See, I'm getting P-Mars to like me. I'm
It's not working.
it's not working. My parents live they live 2 hours from Grand Forks.
Oh, really? Crazy. Okay.
Yeah. Are you close to Grand Forks as well?
You
don't have to
kind of
say.
don't really want to say that.
Yeah, that's true. I'm viewing you as one of those frackers on the west side of North Dakota.
I'm out west. Yeah.
Oh, am I right? Are you in the oil industry?
No.
Oh, that would have been so cool.
But the reason I'm calling in because I think you have a misunderstanding of the uniformity of nature. Like
Okay.
I can see from your perspective where like a miracle would be a defeater for the uniformity of nature. But the thing is like there's irregularities in the world. It's not that there's like only regularity. Because like for example, genetic mutations would be type of a irregularity, right? But you wouldn't say that's like a miracle, I guess.
No, I would not say that's a miracle.
But you believe in evolution, you believe in genetic mutation. So that would be something that's like unpredictable and irregular. So irregular things like miracles can exist alongside the regularity of nature. There's no like defeater there.
Okay,
See what
but
I'm
I
saying?
guess, no, that's a good point. Let me think about it.
Or like volcanoes, earthquakes, solar eclipses.
Well, I
These
wouldn't
are
say
all irregular.
I wouldn't say
They're unpredictable.
I would say volcanoes would be a bad example, but you made a good point with the mutations, that there's randomness in nature. But I guess thinking about it, I would say that, but it doesn't break any laws of nature. Whereas if God makes this pen when I let
Okay, I see what you're saying.
go up, then it breaks the, well, it's not really a law of gravity, but the law of physics.
Well, the way we would look at it is that like, it would be like God would supersede. So it's not like the law stops existing.
Yeah,
It's
I
just
totally
like-
get that. I totally get that.
Yeah.
That
Kinda like
what you and do you know the first name of the Think Institute guy? I forget his name. Anyhow,
yeah, there's like 4.
it doesn't matter. But what the guys that we were watching were saying is that God is the foundation for these things called the uniformity of nature, but at the same time, he sometimes intervenes and breaks those laws. I get what they're saying.
I don't, but from our position, we wouldn't say he breaks the laws. Like you wouldn't say, excuse me, you wouldn't say like an airplane breaks the law of gravity because like the law of aerodynamics would like supersede the law of gravity. Kind of. I don't know. That's not the best example.
But you would say that God
But-
can break the laws of nature, yes?
Well, for all we know, God could have access to some like natural laws that we don't. He could be using natural laws we're not aware of for all we know when he does miracles. Because we don't know all the natural laws.
Right. But we know some of them.
So, but God would know all of them. And maybe God knows the natural laws well enough that he can do things that appear like miracles. I don't know that. I'm just like throwing that out there. I just don't think miracles are just a defeater, right? There from a Christian perspective, it's not. Like I could see.
Well, nothing is a defeater from the Christian perspective because you're going to keep believing no matter what, and I get that. But like if we take, I just looked up some basic laws. There's Newton's laws of motion, the law of conservation of energy. Oh, that's a good one. So, nothing stating that energy cannot be created or destroyed. So let's say we have like one of those experimental boxes that's sealed, and there's a certain amount of energy in that box. God could create energy and stick it in that box, or create energy within that box that wasn't there prior, right?
Mm-hmm.
So God would break the law of conservation of energy under your worldview. And so my point was only to show that friction, that tension, that uniformity of nature is uniform until God intervenes.
Well, right, but that if there was no uniformity of nature, you couldn't even have a miracle, right? Because
Right, and that's the point Eli made. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not denying that. And from your worldview and internal critique, that's how you define what a miracle is. It's when it's something outside these laws.
do you understand Wise Disciples' point about like if there's a causal agent that's causally imposing the uniformity of nature, like that makes sense, right? Whereas if there's no causal agent, it's kind of like a total mystery. You see do you understand that?
I understand exactly what you're saying. I just disagree with it.
Mm-hmm. What do you disagree with there?
Okay.
You don't think it makes sense
Well,
that there's a causal agent?
well, the thing is,
it?
this whole idea of what makes sense to one person might not make sense to another. So, for example, I am a betting man, and I bet that for you, it does not make sense for our universe to exist without a God existing. Am I correct?
Maybe that's a poor choice of words. Maybe I should rephrase it. Maybe I should say like God as a causal agent imposing uniformity. That is an explanation where like you wouldn't even have an explanation. Like
Yeah, I
kind
do.
of a mystery. But you just say you presuppose it, but that's not an explanation.
My explanation is necessity.
Oh, okay. So that's what Graham Oppie goes. Okay. Yeah. All right.
You don't like that answer?
I just think it's kind of a dodge. Is like how.
Okay,
yeah, I don't think
okay, P. Mars. I like you, man. You're a North Dakotan.
But, like-
I love North Dakotans because you understand what cold is, and I understand what cold is, and so we have a bond. Okay, so we're friends now. But if if you say this is a cop out, let me ask you a question. And I want you to answer honestly. Why does God exist?
Well, here I can't say something fair. To be fair, though, that's the same thing Graham Oppie says, and he's like the most intelligent atheist in the world.
Well, thank you. You
So-
just complimented me. I'm just like Graham Murphy.
Yes.
Yeah. But now
Yes.
you said it was a cop out for me to say necessity. Now let me ask you this. Why does God exist?
Well, my answer to that is because I think that due to human limitations, we can't defeat skepticism. Like if all we had to rely on was science and reason, I don't think we could really know anything, and that we need a help. We need knowledge from God, revelation. If you deny
No,
that,
even before humans
until-
exist. Why does God exist?
oh, why does God exist?
Yeah, I've asked
Well,
it
God
3
would
times
be
now.
like, God would like explain himself. I guess he would be uncreated.
I'm
So-
asking you, why does God exist? And your answer is?
I'm not really sure. Like, there's a couple ways I could answer that. Like, he's the
Choose one.
necessary.
What? He's necessary? What a cop-out
necessary-
answer, P. Mars. What a cop-out answer. You notice that's the same answer I gave.
No, I wouldn't. I
P.
wouldn't.
Mars, let's be real with each other. We both know what cold is. We're both from the up
No,
north.
I wouldn't say.
We're friends.
No, I wouldn't. But I wouldn't say that the explanation for his existence is that he's necessary. I would say that he is his own explanation.
Okay, the
grounds
cosmos.
himself.
Okay, ask me why the universe exists.
I don't really care.
Because I'll give the same
'Cause
answer
I don't
you
think
gave.
that- But I don't. The universe grounds itself, but the universe can't ground itself.
God can't ground himself, can he?
Sure, he can.
Why?
He's
How?
ultimate. That's what it means to be ultimate. The ultimate is that which explains everything in the system. So God.
The cosmos is the ultimate, P. Mars. It explains everything.
Okay, but that's a reification fallacy.
What do you
Because
mean?
you're
I'm just a farm boy from Manitoba. What is
you're taking
reification?
you're taking an abstraction and treating an abstraction like it's
No, I'm not talking abstractions. I'm talking about the universe, the cosmos.
Oh my gosh.
Material.
But that is an abstraction. That's an abstraction.
God's an abstraction, right?
No, God is concrete.
The universe is concrete.
Well, no, it's not.
Well, was God made up of something? What do you mean by concrete? God is concrete?
Like he's actual.
He's actual. Actual what?
Well, that's a good question. He'd be the most fundamental.
P-Bars, you hopped
thing,
into
like-
the wrong live stream tonight. I
Well,
still
he's
like
the
you.
He'd be the most like fundamentally existing thing. And
Okay.
so-
The most fundamentally existent thing, and that's what I say the cosmos is.
right, so the whole idea is like if that's your starting point, that would entail like knowledge would be impossible. So that's the whole argument. Is like
What do you mean by knowledge?
if you start like belief state with a justificatory path to a state of affairs.
So you're saying if God doesn't exist, I can't say that 1 + 1 = 2?
Correct, because like what would limit the properties of one, so that the properties of one don't like change.
We can
'Cause if
use
the
by
properties of
definition.
one-
So let's say I'm an animal, a moist. No. Let's say I'm a moist robot. Okay, and a moist robot can recognize things, especially the AI ones nowadays, and they can see an object, see another object, and count them. Like a calculator can add one
Okay.
at one. Does a calculator need God to add 1 + 1?
Yes, because there needs to be limitations. If there's no limitations, then everything's going to be like random. So like,
Does
1
God
+
have
1 will not
limitations?
equal 5. Yes, God would limit himself.
Okay. By his nature.
He's the all limiter. Van Til calls him the all conditioner because he
Well, the universe is the
conditioner,
same way as
conditioner.
God. Like the cosmos limits itself. It can only do what the cosmos can do.
Yeah, but again, that is a reification. You're taking an abstraction and treating it like it's something that's actual, because abstractions can't impose on themselves on reality. Like an abstraction can't turn the light switch on or start your car.
Okay, what if I just say abstractions don't exist? What would you say then?
Well, that's a lot of problem. Well, arguments. I mean, wouldn't arguments be abstract? So then arguments don't exist, and then
No, we're just calculators talking to each other.
we're just. Well, I chemical you, PineCreek. You're my favorite.
Can we
you're my
shift
favorite
topics?
Chemical.
Can we shift topics a little bit? Because I'm more interested in the
Sure.
real you.
Oh, you want to psych? Yeah, because you're like a continental philosopher, so you're gonna psychoanalyze me now.
No, I just want to hear your backstory. That's all. You're from North Dakota, where I feel like we're neighbors.
Yeah.
And so I just
Okay.
want to get to know you. Like, I used to be a Christian, and I left Christianity in my mid-30s. You're a Christian, right?
Yeah, I was raised Christian Catholic, and then I left at 13, and then I became a Christian at 37. And I'm 42.
Whoa, see, this is interesting. I left as you were coming in. So, like, the balance of heaven hasn't been changed because of us. One gone, one in.
That's how it works.
Even Stephen. So why did you come back into Christianity at age 37? And can I guess first?
It's because
Let me guess. Please let me guess.
okay, sure.
Okay. So 37 you said, right? That's pretty old to enter Christianity. Now, you still had all that background knowledge of Christianity, so I get it. So usually when someone that age enters Christianity, there's maybe 5 reasons. Number 1, you met a woman and got married in that time period who was a Christian. But don't tell me the right answer yet. Okay, that's gone. Number 2, there was some major problem in your life, which could be like an addiction, like some type of, maybe you were alcoholic, whatever, and you needed a change in your life. Number 3, don't tell me if that's right or not. Number 3, another option is you had a business or a job or something, and you went bankrupt, and you, again, some devastating thing. Number 4, a death in the family maybe, and it made you realize that there's more to life. Okay, those are 4. Which of those are right? P. Mars, are you still there?
Sorry, I stood up. I had to go do something real quick. So you're asking like why I became a Christian, right?
Yeah, at that age, yeah.
I don't think really any of those. Not really. No.
Well, maybe you were about to say maybe what?
I mean,
Come on, we're friends. We tell the truth here. No mistruthing. It's okay to tell the truth.
You could say maybe I was like having an existential crisis, like I was.
Yeah, but caused by either bankruptcy, a death, or addiction.
It wasn't like there was nothing like just huge stress in my life or anything. Maybe like depression, maybe.
There you go. Depression is a good one. Yeah, I don't, and you know what? I'm an atheist. I don't blame you. I mean, if I were depressed and I needed help, Jesus is the cheapest therapist.
But I think really what it was, because I've been depressed for like a long time before that, right? I don't know. So I don't know if that was. I think the catalyst was that I don't like Jordan Peterson, but I saw Jordan Peterson talking about Christianity, and he said that the value of freedom comes from Christianity, and I always loved freedom. And I always thought like Christianity was used to control people and stuff, right? And lie to people. And so I thought, well, maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe I have a bias, right? And so I examined my biases. I try to like read the gospel with like kind of a more open mind. And I looked at what Jesus said. When he said stuff like, you know, it's easy to love people you like. It's hard to love the obnoxious, like the Gnostic, the Nathan type. I've seen Nathan criticize you. That guy's psycho. Yeah, so it's like a guy like Nathan.
I knew you were my friend.
It's like harder to love Nathan than to like someone who's like, I don't know, your Patreon or something, right? Because it's easier to like people that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's not like a real deep genius thing, but I don't know. It's like hit me like it's just like, this is what this guy's saying is true. It makes sense. And so I should follow him.
P. Mars, I want to make it very, very clear that I have no desire for you to leave Christianity. In fact, based on the short few minutes we've been talking, I want you to stay a Christian. However, the reason why I'm even asking this is because I want to tie it back to what we were talking about with the precept stuff. Most precepts that I know knew almost nothing about these types of arguments when they became a Christian, or even like years afterwards. But you became a Christian later in life. So here's my theory, and you tell me if I'm wrong. My theory is that people use the precept argument as a debate tactic, as a way to argue so they don't feel it's probably the easiest way to go. Like, it's really tough to talk to someone who has very little history with Christianity. It's very tough to convince them that a man rose from the dead 2,000 years ago. That's a tough sell. It's very hard to convince someone, because it says in 1 Corinthians 15 that 500 people saw Jesus, that means it happened. That's a tough sell. But if you use this philosophical jargon and get these evil atheists on their back foot somehow, then they're more likely to shut up and feel bad about what they believe in their worldview. Am I wrong?
Well, yes. Can I explain it?
Okay, go ahead.
I see it. Okay, so I think we fundamentally disagree about like evidence, like what's rational, what's logical, what's evidence, right? And so maybe there's something called the minimal facts of the resurrection argument. You've heard of that, I'm sure, right?
Oh yeah, I'm an expert.
And so I could throw evidences at you, but if you're gonna interpret, like, let's say you don't believe in the supernatural, no matter how much evidence I throw at you, you're not gonna look. You're gonna find you could always find a natural explanation to phenomena, right?
Okay.
For any phenomena, yeah.
Oh, I like you, man. And I thank you for coming on, because I'm glad you brought this up, because I'm not one of those Matt Dillahunty types. So, first of all, you're wrong, just like I was wrong about the precept thing. If you were in fact, my sister and my favorite uncle are buried literally within 2 hours of you, just on the other side on the Canadian border, in a small town. Just where Walhalla is.
No, I'm not too familiar. No.
Okay, but anyhow, it's on the other side of the border. Like, you can see the border from the graveside. If you seriously, and I'm not lying to you, I truly believe this is true. If you were to take me to that graveside and pray in the name of Jesus for either my uncle or my sister to come back to life, and they actually, the ground starts to shake, and they Kill Bill 2, when she comes out of the grave, just bubbles up through the earth. And they're there right in front of my own eyes, and there's other people seeing this. You're there. You prayed in the name of Jesus, and instantly after you prayed in the name of Jesus, it happens. I will drop naturalism immediately.
Well, I don't know. I would have to see it to believe.
Me too.
I guess.
So let's try it. You want to? Well,
but my point.
You want to go to? You want to hop over the border?
My point is, you and me are both looking at the same evidence. We're just interpreting the evidence differently, right?
Yeah. Okay. So I appreciate that. But I don't think we're that much different. Like, if you and I were to go for a walk down the street and down one of the streets in Grand Forks, by the where there's so many nice restaurants in Grand Forks. But that country one. Anyhow, if we were to walk by there and we go to a restaurant and we see a woman keel over her out of her booth and start convulsing, frothing at the mouth, you and I are the same. We will look at that evidence, as basic as it is, and you and I would not say, "Oh, she's demon possessed." You and I would say she's either choking, having an epileptic seizure. We would come up with some naturalistic explanation, right? Because things like that happen.
Yeah, but it's still I don't know. I guess we have to. We're not going to see eye to eye on this, because sure, we have a lot of common things we agree upon, but I think the issues are fundamental about interpretation of evidence.
Yeah, and I get that. I get that. And
I know we come to a lot of the same conclusions and all that. I see what you're saying, but I just don't think that it's not really relevant, I guess.
I think our default positions are different. I think that's another way of saying what you're saying. So your default position is that God exists until he's proven to not exist. And my default position is God doesn't exist until you prove to me he does.
I have something I call the alien anthropologist thought experiment. Like, imagine an alien comes and studying humans. He'd look at the Christians and be like, okay, the Christians start with like God to explain reality, truth, science. The atheists start with like, I don't know,
the cosmos,
the law of nature or something to explain the world. And like, so that's what I'm saying. It's like these systems that that's the biases that we have to compare. And I think I like Presup because I feel like we're open. Like, here's my bias. I just start with God. I start with the Bible. And then from there, I build my system. I'm laying my cards on the table.
But here's the problem with the Presup. Like, and I love your alien analogy, because if these aliens came down to Earth and they saw me and go, oh, what's this guy's starting point? Because they're foundationalists, these aliens. He goes, the cosmos. Oh, well, what do you know? I'm an alien. I'm in the cosmos too. And then they look at you and say, oh, God. Okay, well, who's God? What's God? And then they learn, oh, God is this thing in three persons and is omnipotent, omniscient, and all these things. And then they talk to a Hindu. Well, what's this God thing? Oh, well, there's actually many gods, and blah, blah. And then they talk to the Muslim. It is God, but one person, not three. I mean, the alien's going to look at all these concepts of God and say, I think the naturalist is right.
Well, but don't you think like it's only fair if I have to justify my starting point? Don't you think you or like the atheist has to justify their starting point too? And that's what I think when we look at.
Do you mean justify or ground?
Well, basically, what we would do, you assume the starting point and see if it's like coherent and consistent.
Okay, right. So let's
contradiction.
Yeah, so you begin with God and I begin with the cosmos. We both,
right.
And if you want to use the word justify, how do you justify it? Those presuppositions. You might say impossibility of the contrary, and I might say.
Here's what I would do.
What would you do?
I would say like, if we start with the cosmos, can that explain what is necessary for us to have an argument?
Yeah,
and
I say yes.
Say it doesn't.
Yeah, we can just agree to disagree.
On your system, if two people disagree, is there like a standard they can appeal to see who's correct? An objective standard? Because I don't see how there would be.
Not always, because some things are argued our opinion, and this happens in politics a lot. So, for example, can you really have a standard to adjudicate what is the best flavor of ice cream? No. But can we adjudicate? Can we adjudicate that if I drop this pen, whether it will go up or down? The answer is yes. We can test it.
But the problem is that ultimately, like, your standards are based on like a human mind as opposed to the mind of God. I think that.
No, ultimately it's based on the cosmos, and ultimately it's based on God for you. We just have different starting points. That's all.
Okay. Well,
I love that sigh.
Yeah, I'm waving the white flag. Yeah, but I don't know, man. Like, I think you should read, because I think you're kind of making a fool of yourself. No offense. Like Wise Disciple was kind of laughing at the things you were saying when I was watching that.
You know what, P. Mars? If you can get Wise Disciple to come on this show, he's going to struggle as much as you.
I don't feel like I struggled, but okay.
Well, no, true. That was kind of rude of me, but he's going to give a sigh at the end of it, and he's basically going to say, "Okay, we have different starting points."
No, it's kind of like I'd sigh if I was arguing with a flat earther too, trying to explain a sphere Earth, right? And they just sit there denying the evidence. So, I mean, that's just kind of how I feel like. But I don't mean that in an offensive way. But I'm just trying to. But anyways, I like you, Doug. You know, and
what's not to like? Well and everything. I would love to talk to you more if you want, because I got like. Do you really like? Are you very confident that a man rose from the dead 2,000 years ago?
Oh yeah, I'm more confident of that than like anything.
Really?
Really? I really believe in the tag argument that much. I don't think it's just some.
No. Hang on, P. Mars. The tag argument: a God could exist, and is the grounding for the tag argument, and a man still not named Jesus rise from the dead 2,000 years ago. In other words, couldn't the tag argument be true, and God be the foundation and grounding, whatever you want to call it, and Christianity false?
No. The tag is specifically about Christianity. It comes from, it's about the claims of the Bible have to be true, because we have to have something tangible, like the Bible's tangible and the history of the church is tangible.
Okay,
And
but hang
those
on. What's your
claims-
grounding then? Is it the Bible or is it God?
Well, it's God. The Bible would be the word of God. The Bible would be
I know,
kind of an extension.
but the
of God.
Bible's only existed like what, 3,000 years? God's existed for eternity past.
Well, yeah, but sure.
So your grounding is not the Bible or the scriptures. Your grounding is God. Yes.
Yeah, we'd say natural and special revelation.
Okay.
The knowledge that He revealed to us.
So a God who's omniscient, omnipotent, omnibenevolent, all these beautiful things, all powerful, could exist, and is the grounding for the laws of intelligibility and uniformity of nature. And Christianity could still be false, right?
No, because we'd have to know the God, right?
Sure.
And the only way.
Well, hang on. I said sure, but I said sure too fast. Why do you have to know it for God to be the grounding of it?
Well, that's because you have to have, if you don't have that's like a problem for Platonism, right? So a Platonist says basically the same thing you're saying, that there's these like abstract Platonic.
No, I'm saying,
realm.
what I'm saying is like, the Genesis story,
You're
right?
just saying, you're kind of, well, I see what you're saying, but it's sort of similar to Platonism. But the problem with Platonism is you have like no epistemic access to it.
Well, I don't like
So,
those
like-
words, Platonism and epistemic access. They're too big. Like a lot of my viewers are stupid and they're not going to understand those words. But what I'm saying is, imagine God, and then He creates Earth, but He hasn't created any life yet. Just a rock and water, let's say. Isn't He still the grounding of everything?
I guess in a hypothetical sense,
Right.
or
And
something, but-
He's still the grounding. And so there's no need for any conscious being to be aware of that grounding, for Him not to be the grounding.
Yeah, but we're not when we're talking about worldviews, we're not talking about hypotheticals. And so,
Oh, PMARS, don't disappoint me.
well, here, imagine
It's not a
so-
hypothetical. Wasn't there a time in history when the earth existed with no life on it? Read Genesis.
Sure.
Okay, so it's not a hypothetical. We're talking real life here. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. No humans,
Right.
no animals. Is God the grounding? Yes. So what you said earlier about
Yeah.
we have to know about it, no, that's not true.
Well, in the sense of like, I was in the context of like, we're debating, like, imagine if God like intended that the world doesn't know God, right? We wouldn't be able to know God, right? Would you agree with that? If God designed the universe so that nothing knows God, we couldn't know God.
Correct. That's just
I
science.
mean, that's just that's just science. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So like, that's the thing is like, I would argue that we can only know God if He reveals that knowledge to us. And so when we debating in the context of a debate, when we're talking about God, we would have to have like some access to the knowledge. We have to be in contact with the knowledge.
Do you know who Tovia Singer is? He's an Orthodox Jew. He has a YouTube channel.
No.
Okay. If I was Tovia Singer right now, I'm an Orthodox Jew right now. Why can't I use the precept argument like you do and still deny that Christianity is true?
You deny the Trinity, you heretic. Because that would get philosophical. That would get kind of complex.
Well,
I don't know if I can explain
simple it down for me. Why can't I'm now Tovia Singer, and I believe in God. I believe God is the grounding for
So-
all things. And that's the reason why we can even have this conversation. And I reject Jesus as Lord. Why can't I do
So
that?
this goes to like Van Til. His whole thing was the one and the many in the Trinity. And so like the God, like the Jewish God is Unitarian. He's just one. There's no distinctions like the three persons. And so what happens if that which is ultimate reality is just one thing, then any differences between you and me become an illusion. Like in Hinduism, that's what they believe. And Hindus believe that like everything's Brahman and that there's really no differences. That's just an illusion.
Okay, so
But
in
that
order,
makes, like knowledge.
what you're saying is in order to have proper grounding, you have to have a Trinity?
Yeah.
What about a quaternary 4 persons?
Yeah, you wouldn't like that argument. The argument I read about that has to do with like if God is 4, he becomes impersonal. He's no longer personal because there's this like group dynamic that becomes
So
impersonal.
if you have a God with 4 persons, you can't ground the uniformity of nature, but 3 you can.
Yeah. It sounds weird, right?
Yeah, P. Mars, you're hearing your own words back at you, and you're saying this is silly. You're saying
I don't think it's silly. It makes sense to me because like God has to be fully relational. So
yeah,
if
you
he's
get that with
3
4. In
well,
fact, 3 is worse because the
argument-
one's always left out. Like Jesus is always like the third wheel. But 4
The
now
argument
you can pair up.
Look, I'm not that good at philosophy either. I'm reading this stuff.
I'm not
This is just
either,
what
yeah.
I read. It's like this guy, he says that if it's a quadrinity that it would be impersonal, there'd be a group dynamic that would become impersonal, and God needs to be personal for us to know him. And he says if it's 2 persons in the Godhead, it would lack like the depth and richness of a third person perspective. And I understand that's not going to sound like a good answer.
Well,
but
no,
that's
it's
what I
not a
read.
good answer, but like I could ask you questions like when did Christianity start?
Mm.
Wasn't it 2,000 years ago?
Well, we would say it started in the Garden of Eden with Adam. He was like chilling with Jesus.
So you can have Christianity without the death and resurrection of Jesus?
Well,
See,
like
wise
all tied-
disciple
it'd
needs
be
to be
all-
in here. He would be sweating.
It's all tied together, right? Because like Jesus without Adam and Eve wouldn't mean anything.
I know, but you
Because
need
they-
the death and resurrection of Jesus for Christianity to exist, right?
Yeah, but I think it starts with Adam and Eve, and then Jesus is the end. So
right,
there's
but
like progressive
you need
revelation.
Jesus to die for your sins
Yeah.
and atone for the sins of the world, and that's in time. So my point is, if Christianity is 2,000 years old, and you need Christianity as the grounding for the preconditions of intelligibility, and that means 3,000 years ago there was no grounding for the preconditions of intelligibility. Because
Okay,
Christianity
but we
only
need
started
all we
2,000 years
need.
ago.
Well, I would say that all we need is the claims to be true. And so, yeah, the book was only like 2,000 years old, but it makes claims about the very beginning of creation. It's a creation mythology, or not mythology, I should say. It's the real
Yeah.
creation story.
Don't say mythology. Yeah. Your fellow Christians are gonna go, oh, they shouldn't have said that.
That was like a Freudian slip.
I think I'll let you go because it's getting late in North
Okay.
Dakota.
Yeah. I enjoyed talking to you. That was nice.
Yeah, call back
I
sometime.
enjoy your videos. I enjoy your videos when you're being conservative and talking to atheist liberals.
Okay.
Those are my
Yeah.
favorites.
You know what? Nathan, you know, from Digital Gnosis, he enjoyed
That
my
guy is so crazy.
he
Oh
enjoyed my
God.
videos when I was picking on people like you, and you enjoy my videos when I'm picking on people like him politically.
He's so like arrogant, like he thinks he knows everything, and he's like he doesn't even like seem like he reads much. But anyways,
Well, okay.
all right, have a good.
But see, he's actually in love with me, and so
Yeah, it's weird.
like he kind of views me as his dad, I think, a little bit, and so when he sees,
I think he broke a lot of hearts with this Trump stuff.
yeah, and
Broke
so
a
when
lot
I
of hearts.
supported
You're a
Trump,
heartbreaker.
it's like his world was just crushed, and he doesn't know what to do, and so
You're a Nazi.
yeah, I'm a Nazi, I guess, but I'm a nice Nazi.
Right.
Once you get to know me,
I think so.
Yeah.
All right. Well, have a good night, Doug.
see ya. See, that was a great conversation. We disagreed with each other strongly. We kind of, jabbed at each other a couple times, but no animosity. So this is my my shout out to. I've already talked to Eli, but Eli, I'll talk to you again. But I really want to talk to Wise Disciple. I forget his first name. Not to debate. Not to like have this timers going on and a moderator. We're both adults. If you treat me well, I'll treat you well, and vice versa. Just let's come on my show, or I'll go on your show, and we'll have a Joe Rogan experience. Let's just talk for 2-3 hours about anything. We don't even have to talk about religion to begin with. And I think we'll have a great conversation, Mr. Wise Disciple. And we'll understand each other better. Aragon Gorn says he was very different in the chat. Well, that's human nature. It's very easy to be mean, aggressive in chat, and then when you're talking voice to voice, things change. And when you talk face to face, things really change. And when you talk real life face to face, things drastically change. I'm not going to take any more callers because you can't beat a North Dakotan native. There's no way to surpass that. I like North Dakota. I almost bought a house in Walhalla, North Dakota. It's a very small town. Doug, do you get most of your information revealed from books? Not really. Books are for losers. In a way, I'm not joking. Reading books is one of the most inefficient ways to get information, especially in the computer age. If you want information and that's it, you Google it. You get stuff from books, but you don't read the book from cover to cover. So close to Winnipeg, yeah. In fact, there's a nice road that goes from Grand Forks straight to Winnipeg. What interstate is that? Oh, come on, memory. Interstate. I'm not looking at the chat. Someone knows it. What's the interstate that goes through North Dakota, Sioux Falls? Is it I-75? Oh, if that's right, I'm going to be amazed. What is the interstate through Grand Forks? I said 75, right? 29. Well, that's an odd number. North-south. Odd interstates go north-south. Even goes east-west. That's how you remember. E for even. E for east-west. Except I-10 is a little different. It kind of goes north a bit. You should definitely clip PMARS. You cooked. I'll go one more time with the music here. How do you recommend people find meaning in life? Through relationships. We humans are very social species. Oh yeah, he did come in. One of the first things he said was he was the Presup King. So I got to talk to the Presup King. Peace to you, Veronica. I think the last time I talked to Eli, which is the guy in the bottom of the screen, was like face to face. I think it was like 5, 6, 7 years ago. Is reason reasonable, and how do you know that? And the Lord said, I can either flood the earth or poof everybody out of existence. And the Lord went with flood, killing all the women, killing all the children, killing all the men and all the babies in the wombs, killing all the animals except those that 2 by 2 went into the ark. Because the Lord wanted a book. He foresaw a book that was in need of great stories. And the Lord knew in his wisdom that by poofing people out of existence, it would not make for a good story. So he brought on the floodwaters from the belly of the earth and from the heavens So little babies and toddlers could tread the water for 30, 60, up to 2 minutes before the water entered their lungs and vanquished them dead.